Before I talk hoops here, Jay, we were just talking about baseball. Goose Gossage talking about, what's wrong with the game from the old school perspective. Bryce Harper saying it's, this sport is boring. How would you fix or does baseball need to be fixed?
I don't think it needs to be fixed as much as any sport needs to be contemporary and keep up with evolution and changes. I mean, I think we faced that with college basketball over the years. We hadn't changed the game in 30, 40 years, and we made some tweaks to the game this last year with the rules, and the game's gotten a lot better. And I think the problem is that baseball doesn't have an analog somewhere else. So we've got things in basketball. College basketball can look to the NBA or look to international basketball and say, look at how the game's better with the way they're doing it, and we can make some changes and argue it that way. Baseball can't really do that. And then there's this thing, Dan, about, I don't know what it is about people our age, but like this old man stuff about it was better in our day is so tiresome. Like, these guys are awesome. And why do we want to suggest that the guys that played when we when we were kids or when we played we were all better and we were more competitive and we worked harder and we weren't entitled and we weren't spoiled? We sound like idiots. I'm so tired of this. These guys are great, and we ought to just admit it.
Yeah, but we do that with music as well, or the acting today is not as good as it was years ago. We kind of hold on to our generation, I guess.
Yeah, that's okay when we're all together, kind of sitting around having a drink, but to say this stuff publicly, I don't get it. Like, Steph Curry is tremendous. And for people to say, well, back in the day, he couldn't have played with us or our guys, I tweeted this out a little bit earlier, but if the stopwatch had never been invented, there would be guys our age saying, well, Mark Spitz swam faster than Michael Phelps. He didn't. Michael Phelps is faster. And it doesn't mean that Mark Spitz wouldn't be faster if he had today's technology and all that stuff. I'm not saying that. But there's no argument. He's faster. Usain Bolt runs faster than guys used to. And it's okay for us to admit that these guys are really good.
How did the scouts, in particular Minnesota, miss on Steph Curry? What was missing that they thought maybe he wasn't going to be an NBA impact player, and they take 2 point guards and they don't take Steph Curry?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, they didn't do a very good job, period, with who they drafted and the job that they did at that time. But I don't know that I would have taken Steph Curry number 1 or 2. I think I had him ranked around 5 in that draft, and it was probably the same reasons everybody else had. You were a little concerned about his size. Is he going to get banged around a little bit and go into the point guard position? I mean, I think we all knew he was going to be a really good NBA player and maybe be an all-star. I didn't see this. I didn't see MVP. I didn't see greatest, maybe one of the greatest of all time. I mean, he's one of the. If he keeps on this trajectory, he's going to be one of a handful of the greatest players to ever play. And I got to, I know his dad. I know you do too, Del Curry. And he comes from an amazing family. I watched him play a couple times in high school. If you told me he was gonna be a pro, I wouldn't have believed it at that time. And I don't think his success means we should all go out and look for skinny shooters that their uniform doesn't fit. But it is amazing what he's done.
And he's changing the game.
Yeah, I mean, but the game's been changing anyway. But yeah, he's changing it faster. Because the 3-point shot is still relatively young, and it came into the NBA long before it came into college. But I think people are starting to really figure out how to use it more efficiently. And that's another thing. When we were kids, nobody talked about efficiency. We didn't talk about analytics in that way. We've broken the game so much more sophisticated. The defenses are more sophisticated. Transition defense is more sophisticated. And when you've got a weapon like Steph Curry, you don't want him taking 15-footers. They say, oh, the lost art of the 15-footer. It's kind of like the golfers who are saying, these golfers today don't have touch. They don't have imagination. All they do is bomb it down, wedge it up, and make birdie. Well, yeah, that's because they can bomb it down there, wedge it up, and make birdie. I mean, you'd do the same thing if you could.
Talking to Jay Bilas of the Mothership. Before we talk a little college hoops, Kobe's career or LeBron's career? Who would you take? Now, we don't know what LeBron's going to have for the next 6 or 7 years, but that's part of the fun of this. We know what Kobe's career was.
I think LeBron is the better all-around player. I think Kobe Bryant is an absolute stone-cold killer and has got something in him that other players just don't have. And, it's a hard choice. Just overall game, I think I like LeBron's game more. But Kobe's got this competitive thing that has led him to 6 championships and all that stuff. I don't think that's any accident that he did that and that he's had the kind of career he's had. I don't know that there's been a greater worker in the game than Kobe Bryant. So, with the championships, and I understand that what you're saying, that LeBron's not done yet, but man, that championship pedigree is hard to turn down. I'd probably, the competitive side, I'd probably take Kobe by a hair.
I think LeBron will be recognized as a better player when it's all said and done because of the stats, but I don't know if he'll be the winner. I don't know if he'll have 5 titles. If he does, then then there's no argument to it. But I think LeBron will end up top 5 scoring and assists all time, which will probably put him certainly in the top 10 all time players.
Yeah, it's comparing 2 unbelievable greats, and it's like who's the better center, Kareem or Bill Russell or all that stuff. It's hard to come to a conclusion. But the trump card, those championship trump cards, are hard to argue with. That's a winner there.
Player of the year for you in college basketball was who?
Well, it was Buddy Hield for a number of months, and he made another late push last night with 39 against Iowa State. But I'm leaning toward Denzel Valentine of Michigan State just because of all the things that he does, and I think he has contributed to his team being the better team. But for him to average, right at 20 points, and he's 7.5 rebounds, 7.5 assists, you just don't see that. And there have been guys this year that have put up some historic numbers in that regard. Ben Simmons at LSU is one, and then Denzel Valentine is another. I don't know that there's another player in the Big Ten that's averaged 7.5 assists, 7.5 rebounds, and 20 points. It's an amazing accomplishment by that kid. So I'd go with Valentine.
We were talking about the state of baseball. How would you assess college basketball?
Much improved this year. I think the rules changes really have helped the game, and it's not just that scoring has increased. There's better flow to the games. I think it's a vast improvement. And is it perfect? No, but it's way better. We just can't. We have to wrap our arms around this sort of one and done issue, and we either have to embrace it or we have to evolve with the current landscape, and that is. A lot of coaches and friends of mine are talking about accountability. That how we keep giving these kids things, and how do we hold people accountable and all that. And my argument is you can't hold, if you're giving things away, you can't hold people accountable. If they're employees and they're paid the way they should be, in my judgment, in a multi-billion-dollar business, then you can. And then how do you tell an amateur that they can't transfer? That's like a non-compete provision in a contract. Well, if you have them under contract and you're paying them, you can have a non-compete contract, and they can't transfer without significant penalty. So I think the answer lies more there. But until we wrap our arms around that, college basketball is going to continue to suffer from this. And just the guys we've been talking about, like Buddy Hield and Denzel Valentine and Malcolm Brogdon of Virginia. Like when you and I were in college, guys stuck around for 4 years. You could watch guys play as seniors, and it was such a joy to watch a guy that knew how to play. Yeah. And we're missing that now. Our most talented players are gone before we get to watch them when they really know how to play. And that's really affected, I think, fans' enjoyment of the college game. And frankly, the NBA has become a better product. College has more passion and better environments overall. But the NBA's got a better product. And the truth is, and it is the truth, if you prefer college basketball to the NBA, it has nothing to do with the basketball.
Final 30 seconds. I give you credit at the start of the season, those preseason, it might have been something in Hawaii. I remember you telling me Xavier you thought could be or would be a Final Four team. Who's your sleeper? Since Xavier's not a sleeper anymore, since you alerted us to this, 6 months ago.
God, I don't know that there's necessarily a sleeper out there. If you've seen a lot of these tournaments, you're seeing teams that, like all the number one seeds have lost in these smaller conferences. So it's not like they're a bunch of sort of Wichita State's running around out there. And I would say a team like Texas A&M has a chance. Your alma mater, Dayton, is very good. They've gone on a little slide at the end, which kind of takes them off the radar, but they're pretty darn good. But I'd say Texas A&M is a team I wouldn't want to play once you get to the tournament. And then Indiana, it's hard to call Indiana a sleeper, but Indiana's way underrated as far as how good they are and how good they can be in the tournament.
Great to catch up with you again, Jay. Thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure, brother. Thanks for having me.
All right, Jay Bilas, college hoops analyst at the Mothership.